Welcome back, Cate and Alfonso. When you read the novel, were you as shocked or just bouleversé as just about everybody about the ending?
Well, my first interface with the story was the script, and so I hadn't read the novel. But yes, I think I made the same set of judgments about the character and all the characters as the audience did. I didn't see it coming, but as I read sort of the last few chapters, I thought, that's not where it's going, is it? I couldn't have missed that, could I? And so it wasn't that it's like I didn't want to know that I had made the judgment I'd made. I didn't want to look at that judgment, and I felt quite a bit of shame actually by the end.
It's fascinating. And you, when you read the novel,
I had a very similar
obviously.
experience
Yeah.
when I read the novel, and because until that moment, I was entertained. I was following through. I jumped into the wagon of okay, yeah, let's hate this woman, and then. When that happened, I didn't finish reading that whole scene. When I put the book down, and I had to, I feel very strange about having allowed this to happen. It was a really interesting moment, and it's the moment in which, in that moment, the whole is when it triggered in me this whole idea of the narratives,
yes.
Of how we create. I was creating my own narrative based upon my judgment.
All throughout until you got to the last reveal.
Until that reveal, and I said, okay, it would be great to try to do a piece in which it's about the audience. It's about the audience judgment, what is filling the blanks. That are not even blanks, are there. Is what you choose or choose to see or ignore.
And did you feel that structure was what made you want to do your first TV and your first multi-chapter, as you call it?
It's what it
because that's what it lends itself
It's what
to.
it made sense for me in that moment. So I finished reading that, and now it was clear that we were going to deal with some thematic elements that are very difficult, that we had to tread very carefully, and it's something Cate was very adamant from the very beginning, is about how because Cate was involved in the endless rewrites from that moment on. of
and you have
script.
a co-executive producer title.
Yes, I mean, yeah. It was,
because she was executive producer.
But I think I was more a sounding board. I mean, it's sort of it was a deep night of the soul.
More than that, but yeah.
Okay, let's just talk about what happened. So essentially, now I just want to talk about the men. So there's your husband, played by Sacha Baron Cohen, who has become so angry he's cancelled you as well, basically. Your son has practically cancelled you because of this book, because of what the father of the young dead boy, played by Kevin Kline, incredibly, unbelievably well, he has taken this whole thing and made it revenge to try to punish your character for the death of their son. I
mean, I've just something interesting about what you said about Sacha, who plays my character's husband, the cancellation of her, the eradication of her from his life because of what he felt she has done, which wasn't anyway, so hard to talk about it, that it's given him license to speak to the worst side of himself, his fears, his insecurities, all of the things that lay dormant in a marriage of many, many years, decades, that he can now feel entitled to act and behave and to own and to celebrate in a way. So I think that what you project onto another person or what you choose to believe often reveals far more about yourself than it does another person. And I think what is interesting, and I found confronting in the series, is that I totally lent into and didn't look at those photographs in any other way than on the surface. And so what we all assumed was pleasure was in fact an act of violence, and that I think there's what I was really confronted by and found difficult to live with was the overwhelming dampening that silence can do to the person who has lived through an abuse or trauma, and that in fact if one is not believed, that can be as harrowing as the initial trauma when you're not believed by someone who you have finally tried to confide in.
So I'm going to just say it now.
Husband.
You said in the film, you say to your husband, played by Sacha Baron Cohen, and I'm paraphrasing, because he hugs you, and he, you know, in the end, he's trying to.
He said, "Why didn't you tell me?
Why didn't you tell me?" And you said something to the effect of, you feel more sympathy towards me or better towards me because I've been raped than had I just had an affair with a younger man.
Yes, you find that easier to deal with.
You find that easier to deal with. I find that really revealing and really extraordinary.
Well, but I think that all Cate's performance was leading to that. And what I was saying about, she was very careful about how she was going to build the development of all this, of the character throughout the show, in which she's actually all the time trying to speak. She's trying to articulate. She's trying to, and that's something that it was, as we were going through the whole thing, what was going to happen at the end, you never lost the compass that was guiding everything, and it was what everything was about. So the way in which you're trying to articulate, and there's so much pain that it cannot come through. It's filled all the time with little cues until there's a moment in which she speaks, as you tell Stephen, not because you forced me to speak.
Yes, it's
Stephen
interesting.
being the father, played by Kevin Kline, of the young
yes,
dead boy.
who delivered the book.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, in a way, it's a very strange, surreal scene that at that particular moment in the drama, when her son is in hospital on life support, that she would go and spend the time to tell her story. And I think it's something about needing to get it all out, because everyone's saying, well, why didn't you speak up before? And Kevin Kline's character says in that scene, why didn't you tell my wife when you saw her then? And this is the thing about abuse, is that you process it and you think, well, and what happens to the rage in there? I mean, that's a big quotient for me about female rage, and that she didn't. The perpetrator of the abuse died, so there was no outlet for that rage. And what was the point in unearthing it? Because I can see that this woman has cancer, and if I tell her that her dead son was a rapist, is that about me or is that about her? It was a deeply empathetic moment between the two women, but when you watched it earlier on, you just thought, what is this woman running from? This poor woman with cancer, you know. It makes you reframe everything. And I think that's the thing about people who survive abuse. One of the many things, unfortunately I'm not one of them, is that you don't realize how heavy the burden is of the silence. That you think you're moving along life as, incorporate it the same way we incorporate grief. But once that burden begins to lift, the rage, and you relive those moments. And finally, I said, I'm going to tell this story to someone who I really don't want to be telling it to. I wish I could have told it to my husband or to a therapist, but I've not unlocked it until now.
In a way, you as the director, as the male, in this organization of this story, you're also shining a light on the real trouble for women all over the world on being able to tell their truth in this case.
Well,
I mean, you're a vehicle.
Yes,
Do you ever think of that?
I think no, because in that front I put myself in the hands. To be honest, I put myself in the hands of Cate.
But it's not just about that abuse. I think it's about what we choose to believe, and this lack of collective empathy that we have for the complexity of the truth. and that everyone's perspectives are alive in making that truth live and breathe. And part of it is the rape, but it's also about the way we consume information. I think.
Well, but definitely
that is the narrative.
But definitely I think that the deepest confrontation is about that moment in that scene.
Although
but I think that the troubling thing is what happened to me when I read the book for the first time is that not unlike the characters during the show, that all of this is just revealing their own insecurities and their own biases and their own hidden angers. That's what happened to me when I read the book, and I fell into the same thing but that was it was a rise of my own, arisen by my own judgment, because I was just seeing at the end what it unleashed. What
we're conditioned to see? I don't know.
What were you about to say? You had another point of view.
Oh no, I'm saying that it's also what happens to Catherine. But for me, one of the biggest stingers is the photograph that Kevin's character sees in the fire. Yep. Because at the heart of the story are two young boys with very different fates. And Cody Smith-McPhee, who is one of the great young actors.
Amazing.
Yes, I'm about to work with him in The Seagull, and as Constantine. I'm playing his mother again.
That's
amazing. But I think what happens, and his performance is so beautiful in Disclaimer, but what we see that he saw, I think for me is one of the most painful things as a parent, particularly when my character, his mother, has been trying to protect him from trauma. Children absorb their sponges.
I wonder how you both have personally been affected by that story. I mean, I get a little bit of it obviously from talking to you. How did it affect you? And because it's a long shoot, I mean, it's not like you did this in a couple of months and were able to move on to something else. And are you doing different things now? Are you doing something lighter, something less traumatic?
I think I speak for myself, but I don't think that Cate's journey was so different. It was a traumatic experience.
And we've got creative PTSD.
Yes, it was tough. It was coexisting with the story for a long time, and also the thing is that whatever you're doing, you're driving it to a destination, and you know what destination is, and you cannot be in avoidance. So that whole thing taints the whole experience. So it was. I would be lying if we was saying that it was a joyful journey. So,
but it was really profound and really important, and an incredible watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to answer your question, I think I've been left with an enormous feeling of how privileged I am to have the right to speak, to express myself, and to not have my voice silenced, or to live in a society where I have access to avenues or in groups of people and communities that I can process things publicly or privately with. And I felt that privilege very profoundly.